Hey fungi friends, I am gonna go ahead and make myself some Nameko Miso. So I got these great Nameko mushrooms from North Spore, and I was trying to grow them earlier in the year, but it was too warm, and so I put them outside, and it just recently got really cold, and these things fruited out like crazy. This block went absolutely nuts, and there's tons of these super slimy, super beautiful Nameko mushrooms. Now Namekos have a slimy kind of, texture, but it's because they have these polysaccharides on them that make them very slippery, very slimy, and they can be kind of unpleasant if you try to cook them in a pan because they'll be slippery. But where they work out great is in soups. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little miso soup, and just really simply I've got some concentrated dashi. I'm going to use that. You could easily use like some bonito flakes or other, dashi stock kind of thing. I've got some koji miso. It's getting a little old, but time to use it up. I'll hydrate in a little bit of cut wakame, which is just like a dried seaweed. And I made this sort of ginger scallion oil with a little bit of garlic in the other night. It was just some peanut oil, and I fried a huge handful of scallions, a knob of ginger, and a couple cloves of garlic. And so I'm going to add this in for a little extra richness and, flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess we'll cut off a couple of these namikos. I think I harvested some the other day that look even better than these. These have opened up, and I think they're best when they're still kind of closed, when the partial veil hasn't opened up. So one that looks a little bit more like that. See how there's this glutinous veil here, and here you go, open it up. So I'm gonna trim some of these off and take them and make a little miso. I'm going out of town for a couple of days. Going into Mexico should be really cool. Excited about that. But I gotta use up some food, and I'm just trying to make good on all these mushrooms. Holy cow, there's so many of them. I guess I just use a knife and just kind of like start cutting them off en masse. I'm not sure how they harvest these things commercially, but it must be a big sort of slippery mess. Pretty wild. I've seen nice clusters like this on sale. They're very, very attractive mushrooms for sure. But like I said, I'm just going to try to cut enough of these off that I can go ahead and cook some. I probably don't need a ton of them, but I'll get at least part of this block, which is good. And maybe I'll stash the rest in my fridge and eat them when I get back. But I'm going to get them off the block because I don't want them to grow anymore. They look pretty much perfect. Taking these. Okay, neat. Very cool to grow these. I always wanted to try growing Namekos because they're so kind of slimy and cool, and I finally got to, thanks to North Spore. So North Spore has some really cool new varieties out that are not your standard mushroom varieties, i.e. like Namekos. Oh, sorry about that. I knocked my dashi away. Woo! I'm just kind of shaving these off and trying to get as many of them onto the board as possible. Whoa! Okay. Let's see. This is probably plenty for my soup. Give those guys some nice taps. They were under a mister, and they're really, really goopy. I took them out and let them dry off for a while because I thought it might actually be easier to try to cut them up and cook them. They weren't quite so wet. Some oyster mushrooms are out there too. These are getting a little aged too, so I'm gonna pull them off. Oyster mushrooms are really good, but they can get a little tough as they get older. So again, mushrooms are sort of best when they're right before the rims have really unfurled, I find. For a lot of these commercial mushrooms, oysters, namikos, etc., you want them while the partial veil is still sort of on for namikos and foliotas, and for the oyster mushrooms, it's like once the rim goes completely up, they start getting a little tough, so it's nice when the rim is a little in-rolled. Anyhow, I'm going to pop this on. Pop my bigger one. Fresh water in here. If I had some like soft tofu or something like that, that'd probably be good in here as well. I'm going to put this on pretty hot because I don't need to cook that much other than kind of get the mushrooms cooked through, and everything else is just going to kind of dissolve into this. So move this around. This is really cool. Look at these things. Really cool mushrooms, huh? Slippery, slimy. See under the cap there. Got a whole bunch of them. So you can get a block like this from North Spore. I believe they are, I want to say like 35, 40 bucks maybe. Maybe a little more for some of these specialty ones. But they'll ship them to you. And these needed to be cooler. So like I said, I tried to grow them earlier in the summer and it was too warm. But I just threw them outside after a while. And mushrooms came out of them. They did great. And they look really good. I'm super excited to like actually, I mean, I've had Namekos before. I know I like them, but it's cool to like have grown my own. So anyhow, yeah, you can get this from North Spore. If you use the code Fascinated by Fungi in all caps, you can get 10% off on an order. So there you go. And if you want to find information on that, just check out my website. I've got a mushroom discounts tab. You can learn more about the different mushroom companies that I like. Far West Fungi is also really good. It sort of depends on where you live in the country as to which mushroom company you would want to get stuff shipped to you from. So yeah, I'm just sticking all these in. I'm kind of hoping that there's not too much bugs or dirt or anything on these. They're pretty clean, you know. Hi, cat. Cat's not super happy with me. It's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna toss a couple of these oysters in as well. These things I think will give a quick rinse too because they're in a dirtier spot in the yard. Okay. Give my oysters a little bit of a slice here. Pop those in. So yeah, I mean, nothing else really needs to cook other than the mushrooms, so I'm going to put them in first and just kind of let them boil for a little bit. They'll keep their texture. I'm not worried about like overcooking mushrooms. I think it's crazy to me that so many people think that somehow like when you cook something it's going to lose all its nutrition, specifically when it comes to mushrooms, and it's like actually cooking mushrooms is by far the safest thing you can do, because eating raw mushrooms can actually make you quite sick. Not all raw mushrooms, but some of them. Oyster mushrooms in particular would make you pretty sick. I'm pretty sure eating namikos wouldn't make you feel good because they are very slimy. And the slime is, you know, in this case it's getting sort of diluted out by the soup I'm putting them in. And yeah, it just, I don't know, washes them. The slime gets cooked away by heat too. That's another big thing. So I've had other slimy mushrooms and I like to cook them really well because sometimes the slime can make your stomach feel a little weird. It's polysaccharides. It's not a bad thing, but I do like to cook it down enough to break them down a bit. Helps your digestion, you know? Okay, so we'll let that come up to heat. I'm gonna take a nice big spoonful of my scallion oil here too, and pop that in. I think once I get a little closer to the end, I'll throw some miso in, but I don't want to boil the miso super hard, and I do want this to kind of come up to a boil. So we got our wakame starting to bloom. I'll throw like a clove of garlic in here or something like that. I guess I'm already putting the ginger scallion oil. Yeah, no, I'm good. I got the alliaceous stuff coming. That's what I'm working with. Just really beautiful, oily scallions, ginger. I'm just gonna wait till this boils before I add something else cold to it. So could have thrown like a dried shiitake in here or something like that, but I could have just wanted to see what the namikos would be like, mostly on their own. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually gets a little foamy when this boils, because namikos are kind of slimy. We'll see. I'm curious. This will be an experiment. It should be a nice, like, hearty, quick soup here. It's soup season. I'm sure you could like take these namikos and blend them, and I've thought about doing that because I've been kind of thinking about developing like the ultimate vegan ramen broth, and how do you recapitulate like the richness of a pork tonkatsu if you're not using any bones or collagen or meat. Well, maybe you use mushrooms and you use slimy stuff like namikos and seaweed, and take something like this and just blitz it up until it's sort of a thick, goopy ramen broth. And I don't know. I think that could taste pretty damn good, you know. So I gotta do some experimenting. Maybe I'll get another block of namiko mushrooms and play around again. So, okay, so that's got a nice little boil going on. Okay, I'm gonna take a nice big, not too big, but a good sized spoonful of that scallion garlic ginger stuff and let that settle in. There's a lot of mushrooms in there, so they'll help to absorb some of the fat that I just put in, but I also, I think this soup would be kind of nice if there's little droplets of like super flavorful, delicious fat floating on top. I definitely could add some noodles. I might end up adding noodles. I don't know. I was just going to eat like miso soup, but I kind of want some starch. I'm going to get some instant ramen and just throw this in. There we go, another block instant ramen. I think I'll leave out the seasoning packet because I already added some dashi, and I'm gonna put some miso in here too. So I'll just let that cook down for a minute or two. I'll take a nice big spoonful of our miso here and put that in for some extra depth of flavor and good umami. So I'm just gonna let that sort of sit on top there and loosen up for a minute or two. A couple of tiny mushrooms I can grab these, toss them in. So my guess, if you're cooking namikos like this, you probably want at least a solid like 5 minutes of boiling, if not maybe a little bit longer. And that's just to make sure that slime all has a chance to kind of cook down. These tiny ones I'm just tossing in because they're so tiny. They should cook up pretty quick. Okay, so try to break up that miso a little bit. I don't want to cook it too hard, so I'm going to turn the heat down just a bit right now. And then I'll taste this, and if I want to add some of the chicken packet, I will. And if I don't, I won't. You can always add seasoning, but you can't take it away. Something like this, I could just add more water, but I like the idea of having kind of nice, thick, soupy thing going on here. If I had tofu, I'd put that in as well, but I don't. So I'll try one of these mushrooms real quick. Need myself a spoon. These things are slippery. Come here. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. It's hot. Let's cool down for a second. Oh. That broth is nice. Really clean. Just a hint of miso. Hint of dashi. Nice slippery mushroom. Some seaweed. Oh, it's beautiful. Wow. Great kind of ginger scallion flavor. And put just a tiny bit more of that in there because it's good. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to add just a little bit of that, just for a little extra MSG, and that deliciousness that those packets bring. Okay. Cool. Well, there we go. There's my nice little quick miso ramen. Nothing super fancy, but hey, it works. It's an efficient way to eat a bunch of mushrooms. I have a lot of mushrooms. I just don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of that block, but pour this pour this out here. Oops. Here. Let's see what I'm doing. There we go. Could, you know, drop an egg or, like I said, soft tofu or something else in here, but I'm just gonna eat a bunch of mushrooms and wakame. So I'll be traveling tomorrow, and I bet I'm gonna eat crappy food in the airport. So this will help me feel better. Yum yum yum. Okay, so put a little furikake on this. Put a little chili oil on this. Put whatever you want. But here's some delicious namiko mushrooms, wakame, little miso dashi broth with some quick ramen. So I'm gonna go ahead and eat this, but you know, I didn't even know it was gonna be ramen when I started, but I do now. So anyhow, it's Gordon, Fascinated by Fungi. If you'd like to learn more from me, please check out my website, fascinatedbyfungi.com. I've got cool designs like this spooky sweatshirt and a bunch of other awesome original mushroom designs. If you'd like to learn more from me, you can check out my other social medias. I got an Instagram, YouTube. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter. I don't know, all the things. I got a podcast. You can listen to it on Apple, Spotify, Callin, here on YouTube, Google. It's called Fascinated by Fungi. What else? I don't know. I got a Patreon. You can always subscribe to that if you'd like to support me, or you want to ask me mushroom questions. I get inundated with them constantly, so I take time to answer my Patreon followers, but it's work and I can't get back to everyone. So anyhow, good to see you guys. Be well. Sending you all much love. Good night. Bye-bye.